Well, if it seems easier, you can open as a new layer and choose the Starship Enterprise. Where did I put mine? Tablet, this one. And it will open it up as its own layer.
Okay, that's an interesting project. File, open as new layer. Oh, that's not where it's going to go. There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
It's there.
I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit, and we're just going to use this as a way to say, where do I want my ship to be? How big do I want it to be? Which direction do I want it to face? In general, when it is pointed to the right, because we read from left to right, it feels like they're going somewhere. And if we flip that layer, which you can do by going to layer, down at the bottom there's rotate and flip horizontally.
Oh, look at that.
Tends to feel like they're returning back to base, returning to Earth, just because we have also, you know, back in the day of VCR controls or just in general video controls, when you want to go back, it's pointed to the left, and you want to go forward, it's pointed to the right. So those kind of conditioning things are kind of subconsciously with us, even in art. So you can choose if you want them returning or if you want them exploring, shifted left or right. And of course, when we hit our helpful Control T for transform, we can make the ship bigger. We think, oh, I want mine so big, it's not even going to fit on the page. Or if you want it smaller to make your planets look huge.
So I was moving mine around using the transform. I don't know how you moved yours without putting the transform on.
I was using the move tool.
Oh, the move tool. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Of course. Got it.
All right, I'm going to make mine fairly large just so that it's easy to see what I'm doing without zooming in a whole lot. And I pick my position there. But I don't want to just use this model from the show. I want to draw it myself. So I'm going to get a new layer. Call this Enterprise. And we are going to have to figure out how are we going to make these shapes and where to start and all like that. And for me, most distinguished feature of the Enterprise is this like elliptical disc section right in front. And we do have the handy dandy ellipse function on our drawing tool. I want to make sure I'm on a pen and not an airbrush. I want to make sure that pen is a normal size. And it doesn't matter what color right now, but I want to pick something I can see. So I'm going to pick this awful neon green. And I'm just going to draw a general ellipse. You can use the move tool to position it where you want it. It's not going to be exact, but we want it to be maybe 80% accurate.
Oh, okay. So that little thing has a bottom on it as well as a top.
These little like protrusions.
It looks like it's, yeah, it's got that bottom. Yeah, so I'm making,
bottom.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not including that in my.
Yeah, that's artistic license there to add or subtract as you will. I'm going to fill it up with my paint bucket. Whoops, got to make sure my paint bucket is on layer, not canvas, so I can fill that in easily.
Okay. Yes, there. All right.
And now I can take a look at what color do I want to make my enterprise. I can even just hold down the Alt key and select one of these gray greens if I want to, or kind of yellow grays, I guess. I'm seeing yellow in my color picker here. Or if you just want to select a gray on your own, maybe go for a blue gray, that's up to you, but we're going to change the color of this, and I'm going to protect alpha because I don't want any paint to go outside of the shape I already have. And I choose this nice gray color. And on our original picture here, we have the underside or the edge here being lit up, and then the top is dark. To do that, we are going to duplicate this layer. Use our friend Control U to lower the brightness. And then transform it to be a little bit smaller. So that we'll have that edge showing underneath.
Okay.
If it's a little difficult trying to size the oval so it won't show light above as well as below, you can always go ahead and make it clipping to the bottom layer, and then you can just look at the bottom without having to worry about the top.
Huh. Okay. Yours fits so nice. Mine doesn't. Did you make it a little bigger to fit around the other thing?
I used my clipping. So this one, if I unclip it, you can see how it can actually be quite big. Bigger than my bottom one. And then as soon as you clip it to the layer below.
Oh!
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of odd. Let's just try that. Oh, whoa. Okay.
Makes it a little easier. And then we also have this bottom edge that is light on one side and then just about the same color on the other side as the top. So I am going to grab my airbrush, make it quite large. Make sure I'm on this bottom layer. And then just, whoops, I got to change back to freehand. Just add that shading to one side. You can even go a little bit darker if you want to. Just like we do with the planets to get that 3D look going. And when you like it, you're going to collapse those two layers together with that little down arrow button next to the trash can on the layer, or you can hit Control E.
Oh, okay, wait, I am way behind you. I feel
Okay,
like
I'll
I'm
pause right here.
one of the Friday kids. Too fast, too fast. All right,
we'll
I'm
go ahead and
still
pause
trying to clip this thing. Oh, yeah, that looks sort of. No, that's not. Oh, I see what my real problem is. I'm having many problems thinking about this, but to see how clipping goes. The dark part is on the top, the light part is on top. The light part is on the top, right?
The light part is at the front edge of the bottom plane. Yeah.
Okay, so this is.
It's being lit from underneath.
Okay, that's, I keep getting them in the wrong order. There we go. You go right there. I started doing this in a different way than you, and that didn't help me.
That's all right, particularly when it's a one-on-one lesson.
Right.
Easy to adjust.
Okay. Finally. Okay, now I gotta quick do some shading. Shading, airbrush, big, how big are you gonna be? That. As long as I have it clipping.
Yep, you can just color wherever you want.
Okay, where's coloring? Oh, I know, freehand.
Yeah, I did that too.
Freehand. I see nothing.
Is your opacity all the way up? The percentage under your brush size?
My opacity's up. Brush
Are you
control.
on
I have a color.
right layer?
I'm on the top, the layer that's the top of the ship.
I did my bottom layer.
Let's try that. Oh, that worked.
All right.
All right, so I'm going to just undo that for a minute and change that color. Try again. Oh, perfection. Okay. That was difficult.
Well, we're going to do it a couple more times because we have these almost like layers of a cake stacked up on one another. So these are just more ellipses with the same kind of shading. So I'm going to go back to mine and get my ellipse tool again. If it's easier and less stressful, you can get a new layer in case we mess something up. We don't want our good stuff to go away. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and take away my disk so I can see my reference. And so this one isn't a perfect oval. It's like sitting on top, so the bottom's more flattened. So when I make my ellipse, I'm only looking at the top curve. And then just with my own freehand tool, I'm just going to carve off the bottom there. Doesn't have to be perfect. And we'll erase that part down there that we don't need.
Okay, let's brush green. Green. Oh, airbrush. Let's go back to the pen. So I know you're going to do this again.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason why you filled it in first? It seems to me I might.
Just so that I can see if I like my shape or not.
Aha.
It's easier to see it, yeah, when it's filled in rather than just an outline.
So I better protect my alpha here?
Absolutely. We're going to protect the alpha. And when we like the shape, we're going to go ahead and select our dark color from our shading down here.
Okay, but I'm not filling it in for some reason.
Oops.
All right, I'm on the layer. It's turned on. I've got layer and it isn't going to unprotect the alpha. Oh, that worked. I didn't really want to protect my alpha yet.
Yeah, not yet. Now we do. Now that it's filled in the color that we want, I'm going to get my airbrush again and get this lighter color from the top of the disc. And with my, oh, that's a little too big. With my airbrush, just put in a little bit of highlight. And you can leave this layer separate in case you want to change it later, or you can just smash it all down with that down arrow button. I'm going to go ahead and smash mine down so everything's on the same layer. And we'll do the whole thing again. By now the shapes are getting so small you might be able just to hand trace it. Whoops, got to change back to pen.
Okay, so I'm around to coloring mine now. I've actually got 3 bumps on mine because I did the last 2 together.
Okay, I'll go ahead and finish that up.
I have a hard time filling these things because if I let it expand, it just turns into a blob because the thing's so small on my paper.
Oh, right, right.
It's not enough pixels as it is, but so I'm just gonna smooth it out with my brush. Oh, well, good enough.
Once you're done with your disk portion, we're going to move on to these 2 auxiliary thrusters.
Auxiliary thrusters. The
Yeah.
nacelles, you mean?
Oh, are those what they're called? Yeah, I didn't know the terminology. So we're going to ignore the little fiddly bits everywhere and look at the big shape, which is mostly cylindrical. So I will get my pen tool again on a new layer, and I'm going to get my polygon or polyline. The difference is the polyline, you can just make a line. It doesn't have to be a closed shape. The polygon will make a closed shape. So at minimum, it'll make a triangle. Either one is fine. I'm going to use the polygon. I'm going to get a color I can see. And I'm going to start at the top here, go to the bottom, and just kind of trace along in a rectangular shape. Something like that, so I can modify the ends next.
Oh, it's there. I just didn't draw in green. So I can't see it. Let's try that green. Okay, filled it in.
This back portion, probably easiest just to turn your pen back to freehand and do it freehand. It is a little bit of a unusual shape of a cylinder getting cut off diagonally and vertically to some degree. And there's no FireAlpaca tool that will help us with that. So I just filled it in as best I could. And in the front, we have kind of a half dome thing happening. So we can do our ellipse tool if we want, or we can do it by hand. I'm going to go ahead and use my ellipse tool and just make a general curve that fits. Well, actually, I might do it on a new layer so that I can adjust it and I don't have to do any guesswork. Using that Control T for transform and fitting that on the end. In fact, I will fill that with orange just so we can see what's going on there.
Well, that didn't work. Or maybe it did. I don't know. It filled in inside the line on mine. Did you draw your line with orange?
I did draw my line with orange.
Oh, well, okay.
You should be able to, is it on a different layer or no?
Yeah, it's on a different layer. So
you should be able to fill in the line itself also.
And what should I use to do that?
The paint bucket with the expansion on.
Oh, yeah, okay. Now I'm going to fill in the inside. Orange. Yep.
Excellent. So for the green part, I'm going to turn that into a gray that I used on my disc, the top of my disc portion. You can protect alpha if you want to make sure it doesn't go outside of the shape we've already made. Then we'll be adding more shading with the airbrush. I grab that dark shadowy gray that I was using before. Make sure that protect alpha is still checked. Make sure I'm on freehand and I can just color in bottom portion. A little bit lighter gray there. If it's not looking very 3D, not looking very punchy, you can just take your shadow color a little darker. It's what I hear in drawing class all day, every day. Dark's darker, light's lighter.
That kind of makes sense.
For the orange portion, I'm going to do the same, except I'm going to go ahead and steal this sort of dark brown color at the bottom of my reference. Protect the alpha of that layer. I don't want it to spill out. And I'll start coloring in some shading down there. You can even steal the actual light color as well. And there's that bright dot to kind of show the front of it. I'm going to shrink my brush down and paint that closer to the right edge, farther away from the left edge of my orange section there.
So is that a freehand dot or a little?
I did it freehand. You can use the ellipse if you want. It's so small, I just went for it freehand. And depending on how detailed you want to get, you can try to draw in this little starburst pattern in front if you like. Add some of these dark stripes. It's up to you.
All right, some light color. Was that, you're using the airbrush, aren't you?
Yes, I'm still using the airbrush.
Very tiny.
Very tiny airbrush.
Okay.
All right, then we're going to make this end piece just a little bit darker than what we already have. And to do that, I'm just going to grab my lasso tool, which looks a little bit like a peanut over in my toolbar here. And I'm just going to cut off that last section there. The rest of it should turn blue. I'll hit my Control U to bring up my hue, saturation, and brightness, and I'll take that brightness down. Whoops, I have to be on the right layer.
Oh, yeah.
That's a little detail. Take it down a notch, say OK. And it's Control D for deselect. And that should be a darker gray. You could obviously just hand pick a darker gray and color it in. That's another way to do it. And lastly, there's these little side fins, little protrusions coming out. So I am going to take off my Protect Alpha, paint up into that shape. I'm going to take that color and go a little lighter on my color picker so that I can put a little highlight. I'm just using the pen right now to make them nice and crisp. There's one, and there's two. The side of this one might be a little bit darker as it's turning away, so you can fill that in with the pen as well.
Okay.
Once I love everything, I'm going to flatten my layers. If you don't want to flatten your layers, you need to make a folder so that you can duplicate the entire folder, but I'm just going to go ahead and use my layer, duplicate my layer, and now I've got two.
And I need to move it. Oh, I can just use the move tool, can't I?
Yep, you can use the move tool.
And they overlap a little, so I probably behind.
Yep, I moved one of mine behind, tilted it a little bit so that it matches the reference picture a little better. And then we'll do the main part here. Same type of thing. I'm going to get a new layer. I need to get this silhouette somehow, so I can use my polygon, polyline. I can freehand trace it. I'm going to ignore this stuff in the front because we'll use the ellipse tool for that. And I change it to the color I want. I want to add shading, but I don't want it to go outside of this shape. So I'll protect my alpha. Whoops, Mickey's here. How do I let her in? Here we go.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Mickey.
Hello.
Cool.
Making that Starship Enterprise.
There's so many things to set.
Yes. That's the problem with our programs. No intuition.
That's it. Boy, it just, you spend all this time thinking around and never mind. It works all right. I'm sure we'll learn. Okay, where do we go from here?
All right, I'm actually going to just hide that layer now so I can work on these ellipses without that in the way. Get a new layer. And what we can see is that we'll need 1, 2, maybe 3 ellipses, and an easy way to do that is to be able to duplicate it, shrink it, duplicate it, shrink it. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the biggest one in my neon green. Get my ellipse setting. Whoops, not on airbrush.
Yeah, there we go.
Why didn't it intuit my intention to do it with a pen? Of course, it'll be drawn straight vertical and we want to tilt it a little bit. So I'm going to Control T and just rotate it on a slight diagonal so that it'll match up with my reference a little better. I'll go ahead and duplicate that layer. And I'm going to change it to a different color just so that it's easier to see. And I'll move it to the next one. Control T. Shrink it down here. And one more time. I'll change the color again with my hue slider. Move it forward. Whoops, it's too big. Control T to shrink it down. And hit enter when I like it. I'm going to start with this pink one, this one right in front. So I'll get rid of my other 2 ellipses for the moment. Going to do my same process of filling it in, get that shape, then change it to the color I want, and you can just eyedrop right off of your image if you like. Protect my alpha. Oops, sometimes it doesn't go all the way out to the edge. It's going to up my tolerance. And there's this needle-like thing, probably for shooting lasers, coming out the front. So I'm going to get a darker color and just freehand that. again, it's just making that silhouette. Get a darker color, add the shadow. This part looks highly reflective, so there's all this white happening at the bottom. I can get a very, very, very light orange if I want to and just put in some highlights. Only if you want to. If you don't like it, don't do it. This next one, I'm going to just make it easy on myself and fill it in black. Or a very, very, very dark gray. And this last one, the same color as the ship. I will take that color off of the one I've already painted. Fill that in. And the shading is going to be slightly opposite. I'm going to get my airbrush and shade in the top. Whoops, not with pen, airbrush. Want to make sure my Protect Alpha is on. So that in the end, it looks something like that.
Oh, this has a little white button on top.
I thought it was a light. Maybe I'm wrong.
probably, yeah,
It
it
looked
is.
like it was glowing, so I put it white, but a small detail. In 6 minutes, we're going to connect all of these pieces together. And this at least is the easy part. We just have to take a look at which side is dark, which side is light, and use our handy dandy polygon tool. If you want to be able to see underneath your layer, you can always go to your layer and make it lighter so you can see how far it goes into that piece there. New layer, of course. Going to grab this darker shadow color. Make sure I'm on my pen. Make sure it's set to polygon. And then I'm going to go ahead and just make the front part. If this was a 2x4, I'm doing the 2 side. And I want it to be over the layer of the body part and under our end cell things.
Cells.
Yeah.
So you used the polygon tool?
I used, yes, the polygon.
Oh.
You can also use polyline if you like. And for consistency's sake, I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing over here. And erase it where it goes over the body. Whoops, let's not do that. And I'll do the same thing with the lighter color. Looking at this plane of this connecting piece. Whoops, except you have to be on your color, not the eraser. Fill that in.
Okay.
Yeah, almost there.
I've got all these green lines now. I'm somewhat behind you, but I want to turn those all gray before I mess around. Is there a quick and dirty way to just?
Yeah, you bring up your Control U and you take your saturation slider all the way to the left.
Oh, good. U, saturation left. Oh boy, that was nice. Okay, now I can fill them in without screwing around so much. All right, so you'll want 2 grays, light gray and dark gray. Light gray. And then some dark gray. All right, it's giving me a hard time. I'll use that. Oh, no. There we go. All right, so I have to erase out these bits that are covering the ship.
Yep, you can erase them out, or with the disk, I just move the disk to the top of my layer list.
Oh, that would work.
So that I don't have to mess with that.
Oh, that's an nacelle. Go back. That's what. Take that up to the top. Come on. My goodness. Oh, there's another little piece. I didn't quite get that piece. Drat. Under the nacelle. Or under the disc, there's a connector. Got it.
Yeah, that's the last connector. I just colored it in with the freehand pen tool. I just did a little blob of dark gray, light gray.
Light gray.
Oh, when you got all the pieces together, hey, you can almost hear the theme song playing. Pretty great, even at it, though it doesn't have its lettering or lights or anything else. It is 5:01 though, so I'm going to go ahead and close down this class and start up the next one.
Okay. I'll finish this. I've got the technique, I think. So yeah.
Okay, excellent. Now it's just
Thank you.
repetition.